parang may nagkaroon ng time na nawala yung self-worth ko.
You know, you have to work to help your husband with the finances, to help prepare finances for your children for their future.
Kasi dito sa Pilipinas, pag age mo ng 35, wala na. Para kasing etsapwera ka na.
And it feels like hindi ko alam kung paano ko mag-gain yung confidence ko. Pag naging mom na sila, parang nawawala na yung career path nila.
Kasi na-fed up ako sa sobrang traffic. So, papasok, dahil madaling araw, either mag-grab ako or mag-aangkas, which is malaki-laki yung expenses.
The time spent with your kids and family are far more important than any job title out there.
Nag-decide ako na maghanap ng online job at nakakuha nga ako. Sobrang saya ko talaga. Kaya tinulungan ko rin yung iba kong mga mommy friends at nagkaroon rin sila ng sarili nilang online job. Kaya doon ako na-inspire at nag-decide na simula ng Filipina home-based moms.
FH Moms Community was created for mothers, for single women, for women professionals and entrepreneurs, for women overseas Filipino workers, for differently abled women, and even for young at heart women. FH Moms is a women community.
Nung nagsimula yung FH Moms, hindi ko in-expect na ganito ka magiging malaki. Ngayon, meron na kaming more than 250,000 members nationwide. Dati, ang tingin ng mga tao sa amin, community lang. No? Ngayon, social enterprise na kami with different projects na tumutulong sa mga kababaihan.
We have free webinars about freelancing, entrepreneurship, parenting, and personal growth. We offer online short courses as well as mastery courses with trainers' 1-year support. We also run a scholarship program and an internship program. We also facilitate charity activities where we are joined by community members as volunteers. Job matching program is something they can also look forward to, as well as e-commerce program. And to celebrate motherhood, we also have online bootcamp for kids. We also have the computer rent-to-own program for members who need assistance in acquiring a computer set. Aspire to be a strong-willed, independent woman.
Mas gusto kong maging productive at saka naniniwala ako sa continuous learning.
Inspire other women.
Everyone was uplifting each other. Everyone was trying to help each other. In this world, you have to be more kind. You have to be more helpful because everyone is fighting their own battles, and you have to understand, you have to empathize, and that is what FH Moms is doing with all the moms out there. Even if you're not a mom, you would feel welcome.
Empower each woman to be in their fullest potential.
And most importantly, Mommy MK and the team model humility and generosity. Talagang ito yung very evident, which impacted me the most. So it gave me the desire to share freely to others what I learned freely from the FH Moms community. And I've always loved the community, the motive of the community, that is to change the world one mom at a time. Good job, FH Mom.
Aspire, inspire, empower. Nothing is stronger than a community of women lifting each other up.
To be among women who have genuinely tried to help people. This is something that I feel passionately about, and then this is something that I saw in FH Moms.
God is good. Kasi parang naturo sa akin itong FH Moms na pinakita sa akin na kahit nasa bahay ka, kahit nag-aalaga ka ng anak mo, it won't stop na dun ka lang. Yun lang yung pwede mong gawin.
Without this community, I'm not here in this situation. So FH Moms po yung nag-guide and nag-mold sa akin to be the best working at home mom I could ever be.
Ang pinakamalaking impact sa FH Moms sa akin is their quote, which is moving forward, giving back. That's the very essence of FH Moms eh.
That's what I like about this group kasi we encourage and inspire each other to keep dreaming, to chase our dreams. It's actually a big impact kasi if you are losing hope and wala ka ng gana and all, but because of this page, mapapasana all ka.
Dahil sa online job, natupad ko yung mga pangarap ko at pinakapangarap ko na lang ay matupad yung pangarap ng lahat ng mga mommies. Huwag tayong titigil na abutin lahat ng mga pangarap natin, masipagan pa natin, at huwag tayong susuko. Kaya kung feeling nyo hindi kayo techie, feeling nyo hindi pasok ang edad nyo para dito sa online freelancing, huwag nyong iisipin yon kasi sobrang daming opportunities ang pwedeng ibigay sa inyo online. At nandito ang Filipina Home-Based Moms para suportahan kayo. Para sa mga naghahanap ng online job at gusto ring matuto pagdating sa online business, you can join Filipina Home-Based Moms Facebook group. My name is MK Bertulfo, CEO and founder of Filipina Home-Based Moms, and our goal is to change lives one mom at a time.
Hello mga momshies! Good evening sa inyong lahat. Kamusta? I know meron pa kayong hangover sa ating part 1. And part 2, how to start working from home na free webinar. And now, sobrang excited ako na ipakilala sa inyo ang ating guest speaker. Actually, ano bang tawag dito pag pabalik-balik na? Kasi every month since last year, nagtuturo na siya sa FH Moms. No? So, yes, sana okay yung audio ko. Hi, Layan, kamusta?
Hi! Excited as usual to be here.
Every month at paulit-ulit yan dinidiscuss, right? But, yan, so let me just introduce first Layan. No? She's the CEO and co-founder of 2XU, tama ba? A remote executive assistant service company that helps connect entrepreneurs with the right executive assistant. So, gaano ka na ba katagal dito sa company nyo? Kailan nag-start to?
Officially it started 2020 pero we've been thinking about it since 2018. So, yun.
And then, she also created Virtual Ate as a coaching brand where she's on a mission to give more options to Filipinos to know that they can be so much more than their current situation. So, I met Layan sa isang event na face-to-face pa that time, wala pang COVID, sa Freedom Summit. Ayan, if Mami Celia is watching, hello. With international speakers din. So, isa rin ako sa mga nag-speak and then si Layan din. So, doon kami unang nag-meet and then we started this collaboration last year lang din. Anong year ba yung sa Freedom Summit?
2019.
2019. Tapos we started this webinar series ng 2020. Kasi nga napansin namin na karamihan sa mga members ng FH Moms medyo nahihirapan pagdating sa soft skills nila, especially communication skills. Kaya yun yung inuna namin for this year. But if you want to watch the previous webinars na meron si Layan, meron namang recording sa YouTube channel ng FH Moms, pati na din sa Facebook, no? So, make sure to review yung mga past na webinars niya. Kasi ano ba yung mga topics yung mga previous, Layan, aside from communication skills?
So, yung ginagawa ko, nagro-rotate ako ng 4 topics. Yung soft skills, itong communication skills, how to be confident in video, and then how to be indispensable at work. So, yun yung 4 na inukutukutan ko lang.
Right. Yung how to be confident in video, perfect. Kasi napansin ko na marami na rin sa mga employers ngayon na nanghihingi ng introduction video, tama? Maybe because gusto nila na parang yung mga applicants talagang check nila ng maigi and mababawasan yun kasi syempre yung mga medyo tinatamad na mag-create ng video or di sila ganun ka-confident, maalis na siya dun sa pinagpipilian ng mga clients, no? And I think itong communication skills natin na webinar as well as yung iba pang webinars na ginawa nila yan, makakatulong sa inyo kung nasa point kayo right now na hindi nyo alam kung paano kayo mag-create ng introduction video nyo and at the same time, during your interviews o kaya kapag actual work na. No? And si Lian din, we've been supporting her sa kanyang YouTube channel. So as you can see, from time to time, nagpo-post siya ng mga YouTube videos niya na ginawa niya. Ano ba yung pinaka-latest mo, Lian, na video na nagawa?
Yung how to create a PayPal account.
So that one, kung nakita nyo yan sa FH Moms. And aside from being virtual ate, ano pa bang mga ganap mo, Leanne? Kasi bago mag-pandemic, I know nagta-travel-travel ka din. But right now na naka-lockdown tayo, ano na yung mga pinagkakabisihan mo aside from being, the CEO ng company? And content creation.
Yung content creation talaga eh. Kasi it takes a lot of time mo.
Right. Exactly. So right now, Leanne is in YouTube as well as TikTok. So we're hoping na makapag-launch na rin tayo sa FH Mom sa mga YouTube as well as TikTok videos natin. So Leanne is one of our inspiration din in terms of content creation kasi nga napakasipag niya gumawa ng video. So if you want na mag-binge watch ng kanyang mga videos, make sure to visit her YouTube channel as well as TikTok. So, yan. I think, Leanne, let's get started and then maybe you can share with them paano ka nag-start kasi you started 14 years old ka pa lang sa pag-freelance, right? So, interesting. Sana lahat ng mga single kasi the reason why kinuha din natin si Leanne para maging guest, actually hindi na guest kasi member din talaga siya ng FH Moms. Maging trainer natin for this webinar series is because we want na kahit pa paano may representation din yung mga members natin na single pa lang, yung mga students, young professionals, ayan. So this webinar series is for you and of course for everyone who's watching, mga newbies, no? So go ahead, Leanne.
Awesome. Thank you so much, MK. So, yung sa akin, going back a little bit to yung story ko ngayon nga, I've been working from home since I was 15 years old. I'm very lucky in that way kasi alam ko until now, marami sa inyo, ngayon lang mayroon palang work from home. And then ako, I was very lucky at that time. So, I was 15 and then meron akong blog. At that time, maraming merong blog. And then my blogger nagsabi sa akin na, you want to write for my blog then because I like the way that you write. I saw your blog. And then yun nag-start. And then now I have my own agency. So it's been a crazy 10 years because 25 na ako ngayon since I started. So, yun nga, like Mami MK said, my name is Lai Lacaba. I'm the virtual ate. A lot of yung videos ko talaga, it's directed now to teens. So parang full circle yung ginagawa ko eh. A lot of my videos are questions that my 17 and 18-year-old sisters are asking me, how do you create PayPal? So yun, gumawa ko ng PayPal video. How do you do this? Anytime that they ask me, ginagawa ko ng video. Kasi alam ko, for a lot of, especially alam ko, a lot of the mommies who want to also teach their teens to be able to work from home. Yun yung videos ko talaga. And for this one, like Mommy MK said, soft skills is so essential pero it's not something na alam ko, and let me know in the comments who here has heard of the word soft skills before or first time nyo ngayon na hear yung na term kasi it's not something a lot of people think about when it comes to having a career, having a job. Pero as someone who has been CEO twice, I've been a CEO of a publishing company and now my own company, it's so essential when I'm hiring, when I'm looking for people that I want to have in my company. So yun nga, that's why it was perfect timing then na a lot of you really needed and wanted to also upgrade their soft skills. So first thing, speaking of soft skills, I always cover this for anyone who has attended any of my webinars before. I always cover this before I start, which is anytime that you want to succeed on learning a skill or learning anything, you need to have two things. So the first thing is the willingness to learn, the willingness to actually, like, you're here, this is now your willingness to learn. You're listening to me, naghuhugas pa kayo or nagluluto or nagchichill lang kayo with your kids. Yun yung willingness to learn. You are listening. The second is the willingness to take action. So you could watch the whole webinar na or training na about how to do pero you're not gonna do anything afterwards. Parang zero or parang walang willingness. But if you are someone who right away, right as I'm talking, you're taking notes, you're planning what to do next, then higher yung willingness to take action. So these two are multipliers. Kasi if you take two hand in hand, this is how much yung percentage of your success is. So parang easy math. If you are 10 on willingness to learn right now, and then 10 yung willing to take action mo, of course, 100% you're guaranteed to succeed. Pero if you're only willing to listen, but you're not willing to do anything, zero pa rin, kasi it's multiplying nga. Pero even if you're just a 5 on learn, 5 on action, at least you're 25% there, and not a zero. So let me know in the comments Saan kayo dito? Saan kayo dito na are you actually 10 by 10? Are you 5 by 5? Saan kayo dito? I would love to be able to know who are my audience basically, kung saan kayo. Because I would love to adjust kung ano ba yung magagawa ko to be able to help you get to the 10 if kaya. So in last month's training, I talked about yung top 10 na soft skills. And this one, I will really focus on just the communication skill. Kasi ito yung skill na, yun nga, sabi ni Mami MK, more and more employers are actually requiring that you do intro video. I literally just added that as actually our part of our hiring method, that I will ask for an intro video when I'm filtering for new applicants for our executive assistant agency. So it is, for me as an employer, on my point of view, when I see a video, I can see how they think, especially kung merong prompt, like merong question na you have to answer, so I can see how you are able to solve through a problem. Yung other side din is, for example, for our agency na executive assistant, you will be talking to clients kasi, our clients. So you have to be confident enough to bring yourself up. You have to be confident to talk about yourself. So this is going to be essential as more and more employers ask for intro videos, one such as myself. So why do you actually need to learn how to communicate? And aside from the examples that I just said. So first thing is to be able to exchange ideas. Yun talaga. So for example, I'm able to exchange an idea with you tonight, dahil I have communication skills. I'm able to exchange the idea of why, how you can succeed. It has to be willingness to learn, willingness to take action. I'm able to communicate ano yung mga experience ko as an employer and what's important to me kasi I have communication skills. Next is, of course, it builds confidence talaga. It builds confidence when you have the skill that that from the back of your head, when you're talking, when you're able to express that very confidently, you are more confident to talk about it again. So that's another thing. Of course, it also helps build authority. Right now, as I kind of slow down the cadence of how I talked and I switched to just speaking in English, I am building authority in that way because I'm becoming more and more confident with the way that I talk, diba? So I just changed a little bit of it. Pero yun nga, nagets nyo yung how I can change my tone, I can change my pace, because I do have really, I've mastered, or I've been learning to master how to have really good communication skills. And of course, it's really helpful for job interviews, like I said. Ngayon, we're asking, as employers, we're asking for intro videos. So it's not just anymore for job interviews, it's even before you get the reply, you have to send them a video. Another one is for being able to hit goals. If you watch Steve Jobs, if you watch a lot of the people that we really look up to, they're really confident when it comes to their communication skills. So they're able to bring people from point A to point B really easily. So that's another way that you can help that. And of course, another one is managing a team. If you are moving upwards in your career, if you're becoming a manager, for me, one of the things that I really had to learn because I started out as a book editor. I would just edit grammar, and then 2 years later, I became CEO. So I had to learn this really, really rapidly myself. So I would able to be managing a team and then later on managing a company. So having communication skills is essential, because then you'll be able to deliver your ideas, you'll be able to motivate a team, you'll be able to talk to clients and then get feedback or grow the company or get referrals that way if you have really good communication skills. And then, of course, for your personal life, if you have really good communication skills, you are able to persuade your spouse or your partner. You're able to actually talk to your kid and get an actual response instead of whatever you're saying to go into one ear and come out. So when you are someone who really knows how to communicate, when you're someone who knows how to not just talk, but to actually push someone to or influence someone to do something, it can really change your life in a lot of different ways. So I love this image, and I hope that you've seen some of this, and if not, I'll explain it. This is a perfect example of how good communication versus bad communication, the difference of the two. So here is how projects really work, and I'll use my pointer. So basically, and this is the main image right here. I know it's not in the right place, and I'm not sure why they did this way, but this is what the customer really needed. But because a lot of people didn't have a good communication skills, this is how the customer explained it. Even though this is what they wanted, this is how they explained it. how the project leader or project manager understood it is it's there, how the analyst designed it, how the programmer. So you can see as the project kept being passed on to different people, because they didn't have good communication skills, they weren't able to convey that this is actually what they wanted. So that is why being able to not just be able to talk, but to also listen, but to also be able to be able to interpret whatever it is that you're trying to say, what you're trying to want to do. This is the disastrous results of how different people see a project that's just this, but this is kind of what happened. The disaster recovery plan looks like this. It's not anywhere close to what they wanted, which is literally just a tire. And I love this also, that how the customer was built was basically building a roller coaster again, even when they just wanted a tire on a swing. So that's again, this is, I wanted to use this image because it really shows you how important it is that you're able to communicate not just to your client, but to people who you work with, people that you work below you maybe, and how effective it could be also. Okay, so there are different types of communication, and if anyone can chat that right now, I would love to know what are the different types of communication to anyone who knows it. So I'm going to drink a little bit of water while I wait for comments to come in. So I'm seeing a few comments already from different people. Hi to everyone who's just joining in. Again, this is about communication skills, how to have better communication skills. So I'm seeing verbal, nonverbal, awesome, body language, perfect. Okay, so a lot of you have really good knowledge on communication skills, so awesome. So first thing is written. So written is, of course, another type of communication. It's email, it's quick messaging, it's Facebook or using Facebook Workplace, it's using Slack or Google Hangouts. It's also articles, books, captions. So whenever you are, right now you're reading something that I wrote, you're reading a presentation that I wrote. Earlier you read a caption or you read a notification from Facebook that we went live. So these are all written communication. They or it's spoken to you, you didn't see an actual image, you just saw the notification. So these are different types of written communication. And this is one of the things that we kind of first learn in school. Like we learn to talk, at home, and then when we go to school, this is another type of communication that we are taught. And then, of course, one that you guys have said is verbal. So, of course, it's used during interview, during meetings, when you're doing videos, and, of course, when you're doing recording. So a lot of the content you guys have seen from FH Moms, a lot of what they do and the amazing things when they go live, they're using their verbal communication skills to be able to convey the idea to you guys, to be able to give you guys, okay, this is how you work from home step by step, which is amazing. So that is verbal. So next is then visual. Visual is actually another form of communication. So the logos that you see, the websites, the branding, the moment that you guys see the notification from Facebook that FH Moms is live, just seeing the logo of FH Moms already gives you a prompt oh, this is something that I'm interested in. This is something that I want to learn. So that's why visual is another way of communicating. When you see a quote, for example, from when you create a quote from Canva, or when you create some sort of poster, or again, like this presentation, that is another way that you are communicating with people. So that is that kind of communication skills. And of course, another one that you've all mentioned earlier is the nonverbal. It's the body language. It's the gestures that you do. You see me, I'm moving around my hands a lot during this presentation, even though I am just a smaller part. You guys are able to still see me trying to show that to you. And of course, like I said, the tone and pitch of your voice. If I talked a little bit slower and I talked and paused, then you're a little bit like, okay, can you talk faster? And of course, if you pitched, I'm really high pitched, then it gets a little bit annoying. But if I go a little bit lower, a little bit with the right cadence, then you want to lean in and listen to that person. So it is more than just words. How you say it, again, is the tone and body language. So if we were in a stage right now, you would be seeing the way that I talk. If I was just standing still, I would be a little bit boring. But if I was, doing the hand gestures, pointing to people, asking people a question, going faster when I'm really trying to make a point, and then going slower when I'm trying to make sure that you understand what I'm trying to do. That is how you say it. And of course, why you say it. Your words need to have intention. You can't just say something out of nothingness, out of boring, or out of just trying to complain. You have to have intention behind what you're trying to say, and especially who you're talking to. And of course, when you say it, timing. One really interesting example is if, for example, let's say someone spilled a bottle of water on the floor. If you just let it be, and if you don't tell people that, oh, who did this, what happened to this, then later on it'll be forgotten. And then if you bring it up later, because you didn't actually tell people that that was something wrong, then they would be like, why? That was wrong. I wasn't supposed to do that. So there has to be timing when it comes to you communicating. You can't let anything go on for too long, or else people are going to be crossing that boundary without knowing that there was a boundary in the first place. And of course, what not to say. Like I was saying, you need to have clarity and boundaries. Sometimes less is more. You've heard this over and over again. Less is more. If you are, how people are more scary when they're quiet. How our mothers are so much scarier when they're quiet. It's because you've crossed a boundary. There's now a clarity of what to do and what not to do also. And of course, what you want to say needs to have a goal, needs to have a central point that you're driving towards. Again, it can't be just circles over and over again. And I know when you're in an interview, it's a little bit scary and you can kind of space out and you can kind of forget what the question was in the first place sometimes. So that's why you have to be, again, intentional about what you're saying so you can bring yourself back to what it was that you were originally talking about. So how am I doing, mommies? How are you all doing? How are you? Any questions so far on communication skills? I would love to be able to give you any clarity that I can give as we go through the training. Okay, so what are the actual goals of communicating? What are the things that if you are trying to speak into, what is like a central point that you can grab yourself into? So one is usually communicate to inform or be informed. One of the most interesting things about communication, it's not about just talking, it's also about listening. And I'll be repeating that in a little bit. But if you are communicating, you are going back and forth with ideas. You're going back and forth like, oh, did you know that this happened yesterday to me? And then you make chica with your friend. Another one is, of course, to move things forward. You're giving a report of like, okay, so these are the things that I was able to finish this week. What are the next things that I will need to focus on? And of course, there is, again, for clarity. So if you're talking to your partner about what your plans are for the future, you're communicating so you have that clarity. You're also communicating to inform them of what it is that you'd like to see in the next 5-10 years in your relationship. And of course, again, to persuade or influence someone to do something afterwards. So this whole time, I've been trying to persuade or influence you guys to start thinking of like, okay, what are the ways that I can actually improve my own communication skills? So now we come to this point. What are the actual areas that you can improve? What are the different things that you can do to be able to improve the communication skills? Now, I would love to know, rate from 1 to 5, 5 being that you can do a TED Talk tomorrow, you can speak on video like in the next minute when I ask you to. And 1 is you're really, 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 really shy, that you would rather hide underneath your bed, I guess. Rather than speak in public. Where are you at? 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Where are you at in your communication skills? As I pause and drink again from my water. Oh, we have Mary Rose with a 5. Very awesome. We have some 3s, and which is good. That's a good place to be, because then you can start climbing up. We have 2s, we have 3s, we have 4 or 5. That's good. That's 1. 1 is still okay. That's better than 0. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind that everyone starts with 1, unless you were taught as a kid to think that way. Everyone starts with 1. Believe it or not, last 2019 when I first met MK, I was not confident at all. That was one of the first I think that was the second time or third time that I've been on the stage, and I was terrified during our speech. I only got better because I did 100 videos a day, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit. So again, everyone starts at the bottom, and this is a skill. This is not a talent. This is a skill that you can learn. So what are the areas where you can focus on so you can start improving on this? So first, and I already mentioned this earlier, is to be a really good communicator, you need to listen. So a couple of don'ts. So I'm going to go with a dozen don'ts so you know where to focus on and what not to focus on. So when it comes to improving the listening area is don't wait to talk. Now, what I mean by this, and you probably are familiar with this, let's say you're meeting up with your kumare and they're like, you guys are having some Coke and it's like a hot day. Well, not lately. Maybe just having, kape. And she's telling you about like all the chica, what happened to her life, like her kids are like this, her husband did this the other day, and you're just nodding, but in your head, at the back of your head, you're just waiting for her to stop so then you can also tell her what happened to you yesterday. Is that familiar? When you're just waiting, you're just nodding at someone, so then you can talk. You're holding what you want to say at the back of your head. Anyone? That is the opposite of listening. That is the opposite of trying to listen to someone, is if you're holding a conversation in the back of your head. So that's why that's the first don't, is don't wait to talk, because then you're not listening. You're not actually actively listening to that person. You're just holding your cup, you're just nodding your head. So definitely, if you, again, want to improve your communication skills, don't do that. Another one is don't look at other devices. Now, I've seen this more and more, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, especially if I'm waiting for a text or waiting for a call from my Shopee driver, is putting your phone in front of you when you're talking to someone, especially if you're talking to someone in person. As much as possible, try to put your phone in your bag. Maybe put it on have the sound on, just so you can hear if someone is calling you, if you're waiting for an important call. But as much as possible, don't even have it face down. Even face down, you're still going to hear it vibrate. You're still going to be tempted to just open it and go to Facebook. So when you are trying to improving your listening skills, really put your devices aside. Even now, if you are listening to me, again, you're doing other stuff. You have your Facebook, you're scrolling through. You're not actually actively listening. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And another one, and this is so tempting, and I fell to this mistake so many times still, is to give advice unless asked. Now, as women, we understand this, that a lot of time we're just talking about our problems without the need for asking for advice, without the need to asking it to be fixed. We just want to be heard. So if you do that to another person, you're still doing the reverse of what you actually also know is something that is a little bit frustrating when people do it to us. So when people are ranting or people are talking, you can ask them, and this is something that I actually learned from my boyfriend, and he asks me this, is, are you looking for support or advice? So support, you just hug them, you just tell them they're there, or you tell them, oh, that sucks, I feel bad. Unless they say, oh, what should I do? Then that's when you give advice. Because again, if you're listening just to give advice, you're still doing that. You're holding the thought in your head. So again, you ask them, do you want support or advice? And of course, don't interrupt unless, and this is one of the fun things that I kind of got, is unless there was a agreed upon time that someone should stop talking. So let's say you're doing a meeting where you only have 2 minutes to give report, then don't interrupt them, especially if there's only 2 minutes, unless it's actually time. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is also what it feels like when someone is interrupting you. So as much as possible, don't interrupt them. So what are the actual does? Now that you know what are the don'ts when it comes to listening, what are the actual things to do? So the first thing is ask questions. This goes hand in hand with don't just wait to talk. Try to ask questions as much as possible to again have that little bit of clarity. So one of the things that I learned, because I'm actually originally an introvert, one of the things that I had to learn to be able to be a networker, to be someone who can talk to people, who can make friends as an adult, was I had to really learn how to ask questions for people. Because one thing, if there's anything that I learned, one thing that people love to talk about is themselves, and that's with anyone. So if you ask more questions, you are listening more, you are moving the conversation forward, you're not just waiting for them to also ask you questions. So as the first does is you want to learn how to ask better questions. There's a ton of books, and by the way, if you stay until the end of this training, I have books that I will recommend to be able to improve your listening skills. And another one is repeating back. So especially if you're doing an interview, if you're able to repeat back a question, if you're able to ask for a little bit more clarity, I guarantee you that they will want to keep talking to you, that they will want to keep asking you more, because you are, again, iterating that you listen to them, that you are interested in what they have to say before you even respond. So you're kind of mirroring them a little bit. And if anyone knows a little bit of psychology, whenever you mirror someone, they immediately, the liking scale goes a little bit up. And of course, wrapping up with action steps. So whenever you're doing a meeting, even if you're not the manager, even if you're not the team leader for that, asking them to wrap up the action steps, you're just writing down and you say, oh, okay, Miguel said that he was going to do this, is that right? Okay, so just to be clear, these are my tasks for the week, right? So again, you're repeating back what they just said, and making sure that there's that clarity that I just said. Next is then affirm what they just said, or just showing empathy. A lot of the time, again, if you're holding that thought, that a piece of advice, or the next thing that you actually want to say to them, you're not showing that you're listening to them. But if you're able to affirm that, hey, I see that this is what you're going through, I see that this is how you feel, you are showing that empathy of what they're going through and not just bulldozing them with your own agenda. And of course, take notes. I cannot tell you how many times I've always been impressed whenever an applicant, when I'm doing an interview, and I'm at that point where I'm explaining what the company is, who we serve, what we do, and they're writing down notes. I am always impressed. It's always amazing to me when people pay attention in that way to be able to take notes. So that is just an additional thing of being able to, or showing that you're listening, is by taking notes. So, before I move on, any questions on how to listen better? Not just holding your thoughts. I'm seeing, it is a little bit hard if you are a shy or timid person. Is it kind of passive listener? Yes, if you are just waiting to talk, if you're just waiting, you're holding something in your head when someone else is talking, that is passive listening. You want to be an active listener if you really want to be a good communicator. So taking notes, and of course it has to be notes that make sense as well, not just you're just showing that you have pen. I've seen people like that. I'm like, do you actually have a paper? And they're like, no. I'm like, what are you doing? Okay, so awesome. Next comes to one of the things that you guys mentioned earlier, is non-verbal communication. How do you improve when it comes to how do you improve when you're not saying nothing at all? How do you improve that? Because as you can see, it is super essential to be able to do that. So don'ts is, don't have your phone nearby. I already said this. Don't have your device nearby, because that's communicating to them. Okay, when you have your phone nearby, when you have a tablet, when you have some sort of device that could distract you from the conversation, what you're actually saying is, this communication, this date or this conversation or this meeting is actually not as important to me as it is important to you. It's actually what you're saying. Again, when you have your phone around, when you have some sort of device that can distract you from the meeting, unless you explicitly say like, hey, I'm expecting this, I'm just putting my phone here, you are telling them, you're non-verbally communicating to that person or to the team that this meeting is not as important to me as it is important to you. So keep that in mind. That is what non-verbally you are saying to the group, to the person that you are with. And of course, don't lean back. If you lean back, if I was talking to you guys like this, I'm like, hi. So these are the different non-verbal communication skills. You kind of don't want to listen to that person. You've noticed that the more that you're interested in talking to a person, you lean forward, right? So it's the same way. You have to be intentional when you're talking. You have to lean forward to the person. That's why you sometimes walk to a person. If we were in a real stage, I would be walking towards a person while I'm talking to them. So again, that's showing interest, so then they will also show interest in you. And of course, don't cross arms. That's just kind of like, if you cross your arms, you're kind of like, in other terms, baldita, or you're not approachable when you're crossing your arms when you're talking. You're like, Especially if you're like cross arms and then lean back. It's like, oh, I'm not even here, right? So keep these in mind for sure. And of course, a couple of do's. By the way, who here is guilty of doing any of these three? Let me know. I know having your phone nearby is such a common one. I still see this a lot for a lot of different people. So, which one of these three are you guilty of? And by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them. Later on, we'll scroll through and be able to bring up some of your questions, and I would love to be able to cover them. So again, which of these three? Is it okay to take down notes during the interview? Yes, it is actually. Because then you are, especially if they are talking about the company, but again, be mindful. Don't be, because there's two different types of notes. There's notes where you're actually taking down what they're saying, and there's notes where you had an idea or you're expounding on your own idea and you actually get lost in the interview. So just be mindful of, again, going back into that active listening, especially in an interview when they're asking you questions, if they're asking also you a lot of questions. Is it okay if you listen first before talk back to? Yes, definitely. Again, being able to repeat back what you just said. Okay, next. So a couple of do's, of course, if you're to improve your nonverbal communication. One is having a relaxed stance. So whenever I'm talking on stage, I always usually have my hands at the side or have it a little bit open. Even when I'm talking to someone in person, I'm shoulders down. It's not tensed up like this, and I try to, as much as possible, not slouch. And then we have smile. You notice that this whole time I've been smiling. You can hear. If you close your eyes right now, you can hear the difference of when I'm talking and I'm smiling, and the difference if I just have I still have the same cadence of my voice, I still have like the same tone, but I'm not smiling right now. So you can tell. That's why it's still important that you do smile, because it carries your tone of voice. Plus, of course, you look more approachable when you smile. And then, of course, looking at the camera or the person. So right now, I have a setup where my camera is right above my presentation, but I still look at you guys from time to time to be able to ensure that sort of connection with you. And it's the same thing if you're doing a presentation. You want to try to, and this is something I got from Toastmasters, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, where I would pick like 4 people out of a room, like one from each section, and I would be looking at them or looking at the person above them, because then I'm looking at different people at the same when I'm talking. I'm addressing people. I'm not just alienating or looking at just the person in front of me. I'm looking throughout the stage. Another one is learn how to read cues. Now it's the reverse. Learn how to see if that person, how their nonverbal communication is. If they're frowning, if they're slouching themselves, then there's something that you are not able to communicate well, or there's something that they want from this conversation but they're not getting it from you. So be just a little bit more mindful of how people react, of how people look at you, if people are looking at you in the eye also. Those are important cues to be able to learn how to just observe and read. So, next, stress management. So, you may be wondering, why is stress management in one of the communication skills? Well, a lot of the time, it is when we are in a very stressed environment that it gets a little bit harder to actually communicate, because our brain goes into survival mode. Like, we don't think about what we're saying. We don't even have intention to what we're saying. We're just saying whatever first comes into our head, even if it might hurt a person, even if it might degrade a person, or it could derail a whole project. So that's why you need to have really good stress management if you want to be a good communicator. So, of course, a couple of don'ts, as we always start, is don't think it's all about you. This is one of the first things that kind of that you spiral to when things are really stressed, is you think like, oh, it's because I did this, or it's because, like, why is he doing that? He should be like noticing me. Keep in mind that a lot of the time people are only thinking about themselves, that it was probably never your fault, or the other person is also blaming themselves. So keep that in mind of, don't think that it's all about you. That's all about their fault, or that everyone should stop what they're doing to be able to just focus on you. Just keep that in mind. And of course, react. So there is a difference between the word react and respond. Reacting is if you hear a plate break, when you just scream at person without looking at it, without assessing the situation. You just shout at the person like, hey, what happened? And you're really angry. That's reacting. Responding is you hear the plate breaking, you go into that room, you see and assess the situation, because that person might have gotten hurt, that it might have also been an accident, or that person might have slipped and it fell. So responding is now choosing how you're going to actually react, how you're going to act in this situation. So that is, again, being better at stress management, is thinking of that difference. And one quote that I really love, that the difference between react and responding is the pause. Is actually taking that pause. Is taking that pause to assess the situation. Is taking that pause to look at things from a different point of view. And of course, and this is a huge one, it's so tempting to do also, is engaging in gossip. A lot of times when stress arises, especially at work, there's going to be gossip. There's going to be like, did you hear that manager A said this? No, I heard manager B say this. It's so easy to engage in that, but the more that you engage in that, the more that false communication comes up, the more false information comes up, the more that fire starts, even when there wasn't a fire there to start with. So as much as possible, if you can really avoid it, do not engage in gossip. And also, if you're in a work environment where they gossip a lot, you probably don't want to be there, because then you don't know what they're saying about you when you're not in the room. So just keep that in mind. So what I mean by don't engage in gossip is try to always get some sort of truth, because if you are just adding to the fire without knowing how the fire started or what the truth is about that fire, you are just hurting someone in the long run, or hurting the company even worse in the long run. Of course, you know, the domino effect is you might lose your job. A lot of people lose your job because you're engaging in this gossip. So you're not helping with the stress management. And of course, don't complain. Now, I always define complaining as when you're stating a problem without the intention of solving it. So again, it's all about intention. So if you just say, it's so hot today, and you're not going into a place where there's aircon or there's electric fan, or you don't bring an umbrella, that's complaining. But if you are saying, it's so hot today, does anyone have an umbrella? Does anyone have a fan? That's not complaining, because you are talking to people who might be able to solve your problem. When you're just complaining without stating a possible solution, a lot of people will look at you like, they're just looking at problems. They're just looking for things to go wrong. Other than if you're someone who, hey, I saw this, this is something that we might be able to do. You might not be always 100% right on what the solution is, but you then become the person that they go to, because they know that if they bring you a problem, you could help them get out of it. So that is what I mean by, as much as possible, don't complain. Again, it's not blocking, negativity. It's not, you can't say there's a problem. State the problem, but state the problem with the intention of solving it. So again, who here is guilty of any of these when there's a stressful situation? Any of these four? As I take another sip from my very big 2-liter water, and hopefully I'll be able to remind you to stay hydrated if during this whole thing. Which one of these are you guilty of doing when there's a stressful situation? Let me know. When we are stressed, we tend to become emotional rather than being objective in making decisions. Exactly. That's why you have to be aware. Now you all are aware, because you're watching this training. You're aware that is the case, and you're able to make decisions out of that. Which is why I make it a point to sip my mouth whenever something upsets me. Thank you for stress management. Yeah. It's the first thing is just awareness. The first thing is just being able to know that, I wasn't able to, I don't react that way. I don't react in a nice way. I am, Nelly said she's guilty of reacting first. You're now aware of that. So then you're able to, change course. Again, if you want to succeed at learning anything, you also have to take action afterwards. So, yeah, you have to take action to, now what? So what are the do's to be able to handle stress better, especially in the workplace or even at home? So first is, again, a lot of you already said it, it's taking that pause. It's taking the, it's even, and not just my mom, my grandmother also used to do this of like, Lord, please give me patience, give me strength of doing that. I've seen that, and I know moms who also do that. I'm like, Lord, please give me strength. That is enough, because you are pausing and you are asking for strength from the Lord. So that is enough. So that could be your pause even. You're not jumping to conclusions right away. You're trying to assess the situation for what it really is, and not what your animal brain or what your survival brain just says it is. And of course, ground yourself with senses. So again, some of you have pointed out that a lot of the time when it's a stressful situation, we tend to switch to emotional brain, even though it could be easily solved by your logical brain. So one of the ways that I do this is you ground yourself with senses. You know, what do you actually see? What do you actually feel? What do you actually, is it actually cold? Is it actually hot? You know, you're taking yourself back to, when you try to blow up something, you're shrinking, like, okay, this is reality, this is what it actually is. Okay. So that's what it means with grounding yourself with senses. And of course, wrap up with a summary. A lot of the time, again, if you're engaging in gossip, if you're complaining, the truth has really spiraled to something that's not even the truth anymore. So if you wrap up with a summary, if you bring up different points, you are able to have that clarity of like, okay, this is real, this is not real. So I shouldn't focus on the not real, I should focus on the real. So that's what I mean with wrap up with the summary. Bring up the points that you have heard, instead of, again, gossiping or letting it spiral or letting it be a little bit louder. And of course, be willing to compromise. You know, keep in mind that we do have a long life. For a lot of us who are really lucky, and most Filipinos live up to 75. And if you're someone who always has to get their way, in the long run, that's not gonna work out. If you're building a team, if you're a business owner and you're building a business, you have to be willing to compromise. You have to be willing to think in the long term, not just the short term. Because if you're planning to stay in the company, if you're planning to grow with that company, you really have to keep that part of be willing to compromise, be open to being wrong, or be open to be proven wrong, or even if you are absolutely right, but you can see that actually really means to, you know, that person really wants to try this thing, then just let them either prove you wrong or prove you right. Because a lot of the time we think that we are right, but in the end, people surprise us. People can show us more than what we thought they can do. Next is giving feedback, and this is super essential if you want to be a leader, if you want to be seen also just a leader. Even if you're not team lead, if you want to be seen as someone who can possibly be a leader, giving feedback is super essential. Not just giving, also receiving feedback. So a couple of don'ts. Don'ts is don't attack the person. I always try to say don't attack the person, not even attacking, just talk about what they did. You all know probably the feeling of being told like, oh, you're so stupid, why did you do this? We've heard that before. We've heard that sentence before. And that's attacking the person. If you just went with like, oh, why did you do this? You're not attacking the person. Why did you do this? Why did this happen? Again, you're asking for that clarity. Because when you attack the person, you're demoralizing them. You're stripping away their confidence instead of just isolating what they did wrong or what they did right even. So keep that in mind. Another one is don't assign blame as much as possible. Again, there's always going to be more to the story that you see, to the more to the story that you even hear. So as much as possible, try to separate yourself from that, because it's so easy to fall into that of just blaming whoever was in front of you when it could have been, arch nemesis after all. Of course, don't just assume what you've been told. If you are trying to give someone feedback, don't just assume what their teammates said. Try to get things from their point of view. Try to see things or ask other people for that perspective of whatever it is that happened. And of course, try to not share with those not involved. Now, this is something that as a manager, as a CEO, I've seen so many times where they would ask people who are not involved, and of course, since they have no idea what was happening, they would assume different things because they don't have the full context. So as much as possible, if there is a coworker of yours or there's someone who's underneath you who did something wrong, and you're not quite sure, try not to talk to someone who's lower than you in another division. Try to maybe talk to the same manager, or try to talk to someone who's your boss or your mentor, because then again, if you're talking to other people about another person, that demoralizes, and again, that's also gossiping. So another thing to keep in mind not to do. And of course, don't take it personally. So reverse, when you're receiving feedback, don't take it personally. A lot of the time, if someone is not aware, or if someone has not gone through our training tonight, they will attack you. They will see that it's all about you, but most of the time it's probably about them, or it's probably just the one thing that you did. So what do you do? How do you give and receive feedback the most effective way? First is try to always focus on the good. If you're going to be given feedback, and let's say that you messed up a report, This is how I would usually give feedback of, let me grab a random name. So Marie. So Marie, I saw that you sent out the report last Saturday when I asked you to send it last Friday. I really would appreciate next time if you are able to submit your report on time. And I know you can do it. You've done it before. You're awesome at this. You got this. I just really wanted. This is, and I can explain. And this is really why I really need these reports to be submitted on time. So can I count on you to be, awesome, Marie, and be able to focus on just submitting the report on time? That's how I would give feedback on something that she messed up, but I was still focusing on the good. So that's how you can effectively give feedback without having to, the sandwich method. I don't actually like the sandwich method. You should always be bringing up the cool things, the good things about them, because again, you're reminding them that I'm not attacking you. I'm just worried about this one thing that you did and hoping that you don't repeat it in the future. And of course, taking ownership. So sometimes someone messed up because you actually didn't give a lot of clarity. So keep in mind, just to see, okay, how much ownership can I get from this? Don't take full 100%. But is it their fault? Is it my fault? Is it something that we didn't talk about during the meeting? So keep that in mind. And of course, if you're still scared, you can practice or write it out. I remember when I was learning how to give feedback, I would actually write it out on Notepad and try to see it in different points of view to see if this will actually help the person or not. And of course, again, separate the person from the result. Just because someone was late in handing in the report doesn't mean that they're lazy. It just means that something might have happened, something might have popped up. We know that a lot of people have lives outside of just work. So again, try to always separate the person from the result. And give it, again, in a timely manner. If you're not giving it, if I was, for example, let's say that report was 5 weeks ago. So it doesn't make sense for me to give that feedback if it was so late ago, because they probably don't remember and they don't know the significance of them making that mistake or doing that awesome thing as well. So again, feedback is not just about bad feedback. It's also giving them good feedback. So if they, for example, closed a client 4 weeks ago and you're now just congratulating them, that's a little bit weird, rather than if you just did it in a timely manner. And of course, be empathetic. Again, people have lives outside of work. Things happen. Things mess up. Just expect it. Make time for it. And don't just go into, again, just, blaming others or just attacking them right away. And of course, again, like I said, end with what to improve on. Exactly like the example that I did earlier is usually, I hope you are able to submit this on time. I know you've been able to do this before, blah, blah, blah. So you are looking forward to the future with them. So that's what I mean by ending with what to improve on. So a few communication tools to keep in mind. A few does is choose a main channel for communication. This is just an easier way. I know we have like a ton, and for a lot of you who just got Clubhouse, that's another way to communicate. But if you're trying to communicate with your team, with your boss, choose a main communication tool that you can go back and forth really easily, that you don't have to check your Gmail or your WhatsApp or your Slack or your whatever it is. There's just one mode of communication that you can go back and forth with. And of course, set boundaries as much as you can. If say that, oh, I'm only available from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, okay? And of course, again, compromise if that's not acceptable. But it's setting the boundaries and also sticking to that boundary of yours. Don't reply when it's like 9 p.m. already. Wait until the next day yourself. Even though it's super tempting, it's urgent, or you really want to get that done, still stick to your boundaries. Don't just set your boundaries, stick to your boundaries. And of course, again, set the main schedule for communicating of when you want to respond. So for example, for me, I only respond to emails every, when I start my day, when I end my day, and that's it. In the middle, I try to have my inbox closed, of course, unless I'm waiting for a verification code or something like that. That's only when I open it again. And a couple of best practices is, again, ask questions, ask for that clarity, ask for that, what is the central point of this, communication or this meeting that we have. Be open to ideas as always, because then you never know if there's another way that you can do the thing that you've been doing over and over again. Try to summarize as much as possible. This is me summarizing, by the way. Summarize what you just learned, what you just talked about, again, so you have that clarity. Because you might have said, oh, can we finish this on Monday? And you just, in your head, you said, oh, can we finish this on Monday the 18th? But you never actually said Monday the 18th. That's why you want to summarize. So like, oh, did you want this to be, this 18th or the next 18th? So having that clarity. And of course, showing up consistently. If you want to be better at communicating, if you want to be better at talking, especially if you're going to be practicing speaking in English, you have to show up consistently. Sorry. And of course, there's being kind. There's being kind to the person, being empathetic, knowing again that there is probably something that you don't know. There's a backstory that you don't know. And personalized. So this is one thing that I teach a lot of my own coaching students is when you are sending an email, try to find who you're talking to. Who is the HR manager that you're sending this email to? Because again, people like talking about themselves. People like seeing their names on stuff. So when you're able to personalize whatever it is that you're saying or you're communicating by just even repeating their name, that is going to be so powerful. And double check the message. I have, if you're sending an application letter, double check your grammar, double check your spelling, double check who you're sending it to. I've gotten emails where they sent it and it was for the wrong company, not my company. So double check where you're sending it to, double check your grammar, your spelling, and also just the message that you're also trying to send, especially if you're giving someone feedback. And this is another one, practice and get feedback. So for me, I joined Toastmasters in 2015. That's how I started, being from very, very introverted into becoming a international speaker. Is I did practice a lot and got feedback from them. So since you're still here, I do have a few recommended study for you to be able to continue your communication skills journey. One book, the first book that I really recommend is How to Win Friends and Influence People. By the way, all three of these books is available in Fully Booked and National Bookstore or Amazon. You can get an ebook copy for it. And How to Win Friends and Influence People is basically how to be liked, how to be a person that people like. The 1 Minute Manager is a book on how to become a better at giving feedback, also how to be a better manager. This is a video right here by Will Bowen, Complaint Free World. You guys probably can easily find this on YouTube. But this will show you how to be able to communicate a problem effectively. And of course, what I explained earlier, what is the difference between complaining and not complaining when you're stating a problem. And Dare to Lead by Brene Brown is just perfect if you're trying to learn how to communicate your ideas to someone. Even again, if you don't have to be a leader or a manager to be able to lead. So that is it for tonight. I will be going through some questions if there are. And I would love to be able to help you out in some way. So I'll stay over and see. They also said that if you really need to give feedback for improvement, the sandwich method works. Yes, but again, I don't subscribe to it because a lot of people do the sandwich method and put in really bad stuff in the middle, and of course you end up with the good. I would rather be, and I don't really have the term. Again, it's the method of telling them what it was that you expected, what it was that they missed. But this is still, you're still expecting them to be able to meet this. So it's not so much the sandwich method as it is of actually giving them the feedback that they actually need and not being wishy-washy, because that's what a lot of people do when they're using the sandwich method. How do you practice your, San Newman, how do you improve your communication skills? And it's the same question as the other one below. Basically, for me, in 2019, and that was during the time that I also met Mommy MK, was I literally for 100 days used my phone and did one video a day. I would do 5 minutes of video and I posted on Facebook. I didn't always post it, but I would post most of it on Facebook, and that's how I got better in speaking in English, actually. Aside also from the part where my boss is American, so I have to speak English anyway. That was actually one of the biggest ways I was able to be an effective communicator, was being able to practice just talking to myself. And you don't have to post it on Facebook or YouTube like I did. You can just store it all on your phone. You don't have to. Learning a lot for taking care of my baby. That's awesome. That's very, very awesome. We have a question. Recorded live. Yes, it is recorded. You can find this on the FH Moms page, in the group, in also the YouTube channel. So you can rewatch this later on as well. What book can you recommend? Okay. Again, these are the books that I recommend. These are the recommended study. So it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's the 1 Minute Manager. It's Dare to Lead. And this video of Complaint Free World would be able to help you a lot. So, yeah. Any other questions that you guys would like to? What to do when you hyperventilate while presenting? Okay. So this brings me back to high school. So I used to hyperventilate, especially when I was really anxious. Well, one is to actually there's something that I learned eventually, which is called box breathing. So when you're really anxious, when you're really scared, your everything is elevated, right? So when you do box breathing, you're and I'll teach it in a little bit. You're calming your nervous system down. Actually, it's what you do when you're box breathing. So box breathing is you breathe in. You can do 4 to 8. I have really good lungs now at this point because of the box breathing that I can hold, that I can breathe in for 8, hold for 8, breathe out for 8, and then hold for 8. So that's why it's a box meditation. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 4, and then breathe out 2, 3, 4, and then hold, and then breathe in again. So it's a cycle, but that's how. And I have hyperventilated whenever I had to do public speaking in high school. So that I learned that, how to calm down your nervous system. And again, that's called box breathing. Any advice for introverts? It's really just practice. Like, honestly, after this presentation, I'm going to go to my bed, which is right there because we all work from home, and read my book. Because this is not my first webinar today. I did a webinar earlier this morning also. So I am out of what I call extrovert juice. So I need to recharge in a little bit. But it basically is just practice. Just practice as much as you can. I've been lucky that Mommy MK invited me to this, and I've been doing this every month for almost a year because I started in April, that I've been able to do this presentation without even checking my notes a lot of the time. I had no notes this time because of practice, because this is the fourth time that I've done the communication skills training. So again, it is just really practice. It's again, it's not a talent, it's a skill that you can learn. Okay, I talk fast, as in most of the time my friends don't understand me. Okay, so one funny thing about that, if you go to my past YouTube videos, that was like 50% of the comments that I got was I talked really fast. And one of the things that I actually did, and was actually, because I've been a fan of Lea Salonga since I was 5 years old, I watched a lot of her interviews. As you guys will notice that her diction is amazing. So I just watched a lot of her interviews, and was able to really learn how to open my mouth, like how to make sure that I do hit even the last that last sound, being able to verbally say that slowed me down. Another way, because I knew that I was speaking really fast because I was watching a lot of videos in 2 times speed. As I would slow down some of the videos so I can remember, okay, so this is how normal people talk. So just basically being mindful that you do have to slow down, and just watching a lot of, because YouTube is free, and you guys can see the link to my own YouTube, and you can see again my videos from last year. I was talking so fast. Is just the being mindful of it, that you do talk fast. What can I advise to have interest in reading books most of the time? Okay, so this is super important, and I love that you asked this question. People learn different ways. It doesn't have to be that you're reading a book. These 3 books actually have an audio version on YouTube for free, and you can listen to it. Maybe you are more of a listener. Maybe you are more of a video. So start looking for summary videos of the books. Don't just try to force yourself into a box, even though you're probably a circle. So just experiment and see what kind of learning you can do, and what kind of learning you like. Don't just force yourself to just want to read books just because everyone is reading books. Again, you might be more auditory, you might just be more, visual and watching. Just try to see what works for you. How to speak with lively tone, not monotonous voice po. So, this is a question I got a lot, especially, I kind of had a monotonous voice when I started doing Toastmasters. So I had to really learn this also myself. So a lot of your questions that you're asking are things that I went through that I've kind of solved. So a lot of it is just kind of imagining your voice as a wave, and you can direct when you speak really high, when you're trying to prove a point, and you're speaking low when you're trying to explain something or trying to slow down. So that's how I do it. I've been able to really map out how I'm going to talk next, especially since I think really, really fast. That's why I used to talk really fast. Then I'm directing, I go, okay, imagine the wave. Okay, do I want to talk really high right now, or do I want to go lower and a little bit slower? So that's how I think about it. That's how I kind of fixed the cadence and not to sound monotonous. It's just wave. That's why I kind of hear Lea Salonga in you. Yeah, because I did watch her interviews. I watched like how she even sings Les Miserables, like, or the musicals that she's in. She always enunciates every word, so every letter, I mean. Love your accents. You're so fluent English and explains everything clearly. Been trying to repeat most of the words you say while learning. So good. Thank you. That's good. Again, took a lot of practice. Okay. Any other questions? I would love to just see and be able to see if I can help you. So I have a question from Lay. I talk fast whenever I get nervous. How bad is that? Again, that was me last year. So again, there's the breathing exercises. Another one is just keeping in mind that you don't have to rush. You don't have to get to your point right away. A lot of the time we rushed when we were talking because we're used to, either our parents wanted us to get to the point right away, or no one really listened to us. That's actually one of the reasons. So if you talk really fast when you're nervous, keep in mind that you can pause, you can slow down. One of the tricks that I've been using is I've been getting out my water, and that's my pause. And then I remind myself, slow down, you don't have to go too fast. So just keep that in mind. I had an interview way back in 2015 on a BPO company. I got hired by the interviewer, commented me that I have a stiff tongue. How can I avoid this? I guess kind of the same way of remembering the wave. Remembering that if you're trying to make a point, you might want to go higher. If you're trying to explain something, you go low. So that's kind of the ways that you don't have to sound monotonous or you have a stiff tongue, is keeping that in mind of there's going to be times where you do want to speak fast, especially if it's a 60-second presentation and you're trying to get your point across. But most of the time people speak in this way, where you're just talking slow, you're talking to someone one-on-one. Keep in mind that different people will have different speed also when it comes to understanding. So what videos do you recommend that can help us speak fluently and confidently? There's a lot. Honestly, I recommend watching TED Talks. So they have a ton of videos on YouTube. Just go TEDTALKS. And you can see how these people, because these people practiced a lot probably before they got to where they at the TED stage. Watch them, see how they talk. There's a ton of videos also on how to be able to speak. It's a TED Talk on how to speak. I forget the title right now, but I just watch those over and over sometimes and just see how they talk. I make sure not to watch it in 2 times speed, or else I'm going to be talking fast also. How not to be conscious with grammar lapses? Don't. Probably during this whole time, if you create a transcription of everything that I just said in the last hour, I would probably have had. See, I caught myself there. Have had a lot of grammar lapses. Just breeze through it. Just, if you pause, people usually don't notice, people usually don't mind, or people usually don't even care, as long as you're able to convey what is the message that you're trying to say. So that's just the truth of it. If you ran my whole webinar through a transcriptionist, I probably made a lot of mistakes. Speaking in front of the mirror is another good way to improving your self-confidence and facial expression as well. Yes, that's why for me, it was just literally just me talking on my phone. That's how I improved myself, is I could see how I would raise my eyebrows, how I would crunch up when I was trying to make a point. That's how I learned this. I was just looking at my camera. So yeah, any more questions? Any last questions before we kind of wrap up? We're not too much over time, but I would like to just see if there's anyone else who had a question. I would love to be able to help. Let me see if there's anything else. Don't think you guys have any more questions. And if you guys do, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. For a lot of people who have already reached out to me on Facebook, I do respond. Or leave a comment on any of my YouTube channels. I do have a couple of videos coming up for February where I really focus on introverts. So you might want to try to catch that one. That's going to be my theme for February. We have a good question. How to join Toastmasters? So Toastmasters has a website, and let me see if I can find it. And they should be able to give you a map of where the nearest Toastmasters are. And one of the amazing things that happened because of COVID is actually they're all doing this all online. They're doing it through Zoom. You don't have to meet up in a place. You don't have to be close. I remember my Toastmasters group was like 20 to 30 minutes from me, even 1 hour when there was traffic. And now it's all just Zoom. And it's so much easier. So go to toastmasters.org. Go to, if I remember right, because I'm on the site right now and I can't remember where to look at the find a club. It's right at the top. It's find a club. So let me actually share, be able to share my screen so you guys can see where to look for if you're really interested in joining Toastmasters. When you go to the site, it's right there. Find a club, and then you can enter your specific location or address. This is in the U.S. So if I go to Cebu, right there, then they will start saying, oh, these are the Toastmasters clubs, and there's a ton in Cebu, by the way. If you guys are from Cebu, there's a ton in Lapu-Lapu, there's a ton in Mandaue, there's a ton in Cebu City itself, and you can contact the people through here, or you can search their Facebook page as well. They're pretty active there too, so hopefully it helps. Toastmasters is pretty awesome. It's actually one of the things that in our company, if they want to really improve their communication skills, we actually offer to pay for their Toastmasters for free, their membership. How to avoid being conscious or intimidated when talking to another person, like in an interview. Well, okay, the top tip that I have when it comes to how to be better at interviews is take a look at the top questions that people usually ask during an interview. That way, you can prepare. You can prepare that they are going to ask you, how did you get this? How did you get here? Or why do you want this job? Already start preparing or practicing in that way, because you know that an interview is for them to ask you questions. Keep in mind that at this point, when they're interviewing you, that means that your resume passed, your application letter passed. Now they're just trying to see if you're going to be a fit for their company, if you're going to be able to solve the problem that they're trying to solve by hiring you. So at that point, if they don't hire you, if they don't say no, even though you were perfect, you were amazing, you said the best examples, you show that you were the best person for this job, but for them you weren't the fit, again, don't take that personally, because they might be looking for something else. They might be looking for something that wasn't expressed explicitly to you, because they also weren't sure. Then that does happen. So to be better at interviews, just practice what are the common questions, interview questions that come up. Actually, I did a few months ago, I did a special video for FH moms on the top interview questions on my YouTube channel. You guys can check that out. And I go through the top 5 that are usually asked. So that's how you just get better, is just keep in mind what those top questions are. What would you recommend how to use to improve our written communication? So again, that's a lot of practice. I keep going back to it because it is that. But there are basically, if you really want to be really good at written communication, learn copywriting. And I know it sounds a little bit intimidating, but that's how I got better. Is I started learning copywriting when I was 19, 20. And that's how I'm able to write my captions for my YouTube videos, or write my the captions for my social media, is I use copywriting, the concepts of copywriting, to be able to convey what my point is. So for example, and this is more marketing psychology, and you learn that with copywriting. One of them is using something called social proof. So social proof is, and this is a psychological trigger, because you just saw that FH Moms had 250,000 members, you are more compelled to follow or to go into the group because you saw that is their social proof. That is the proof that this works for other people as well, so this will probably work for you. So for example, for me, if I'm going to be writing a copy, I would say I'm currently one of the trainers inside of FH Moms group, which has 250,000 Facebook group members, and I'm able to do a training with them every month about soft skills. So that's how I'm conveying that. I'm using one psychological trigger to be able to communicate effectively with people. So that's actually how I recommend, if you really want to be better at writing, learn a little bit of copywriting, even just the basics of copywriting, because then you can use that literally for anything. You're writing a blog post, you're writing a social media post, you're writing a letter of resignation even, that you can actually use copywriting for that. So yeah. How do you start with copywriting? Any good read about this? I recommend Sean Ogle, Seanogle. He's a guy who's great for the basics. There's also a ton on YouTube. Also, just search copywriting basics, and you would find a lot of the people that I used to follow as well. So yeah, it's already 9:18. I'm hoping you're still enjoying. I am. Enjoying giving feedback and giving tips. And I guess if I don't get any more questions by 9:20, I'm gonna wrap up, because I do again, setting boundaries, having clarity, and being able to stick to the boundary that you set. So again, if we don't have any more questions until 9:20, then I will kind of wrap up. And hopefully, I'm really hoping that a lot of you got a lot of value from this. Yes, it is. There is a replay. Just go to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, and you should be able to see this. You can rewatch this afterwards. Basically, after the live ends, you can go back and rewatch the whole thing. Do you do one-on-one mentoring? I do. Just feel free to contact me if you do want to have coaching. It's very limited because I'm really focused on my agency this year. But yeah, feel free to contact me on that, Anna. For writing, connect with Ayu Gutierrez in Facebook. Yes, that's another one. Yeah. Okay. And anything else? Yeah. Yeah, this is replay. This is up. You can even watch like the previous trainings that I did. Like I said, I repeat this every 4 months. I repeat the same topic. I just rotate with the 4 topics that I have. Yeah. How long have you been in the BPO business? I'm technically not in the BPO business technically, because I just started my own agency. So I've been working online since I was 15 years old. So it's been 10 years. Yeah. So I don't really think of myself as part of the BPO industry. I just have an outsourcing agency. So, what is virtual ate? So I name virtual ate because it's, I'm your online ate, and I've been an ate my whole life. I'm always a leader in any group that I put on. So it was easy for me to pick just virtual ate because I really want to focus on Filipino audience. Okay. I think that is it. It's already 9:20, so thank you guys for watching. Again, I am on every second Wednesday of the month, so I will probably be on again if I look at it right, February 10. And the next topic, if I remember right, is video. How to be better at video when it comes to doing calls, or if you want to do vlogs. So I'll be covering all of that. Basically, really focusing on verbal communication skills in the next training. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there, and have a good night, everyone. Bye!